What's going on, everyone? I'm just your everyday average Canadian nerd here to react to your average everyday American man who is learning about the time that the Canadian forces, under the British rule at the time, burned the White House, set it on fire. The reason why I say the White House is white, and I've heard a lot of people say, oh, don't make us come down there and burn your White House down again, as a joke. And, well, it's not really a joke because it happened before. And Tyler Bucket, of course, the wonderful Tyler Bucket that will be learning about this today for the third time, but really for the first time, for the third time. Let's see what happens as he learns it. So without much ado, let's get rid of this picture and press play.
What's going on, everyone? I'm just a standard American here today to learn and react to when Canada burned down the White House.
1783. Now, we all know that this is part of the War of 1812, so let's find out more.
What? Okay, yes, I did watch a video just before this one about the War of 1812. A lot of crazy stuff happening that I didn't know about. And one of the crazier things that I didn't know was just casually, Canada burned down the White House. I've never heard of this. This is not something that's really taught in America, or I was asleep that day in elementary school, asleep on my little desk, little tiny me. But no, I have never heard this brought up in conversation on the news. Any, referring to this event.
And in Canada, I thought that it was actually very widely known, like a popular point of pride for us, a point in history that we are all very much aware of, but supposedly not. And this number 1783 is really making me wonder.
Which is very strange to me. Very, very strange. Maybe this video can give me more clarification on why that is. Why I didn't know the White House was burned?
Well, I doubt that it's something that American education system is going to be very proud of, going to focus on. They're going to want to try and sweep that under any kind of rug they can, right?
Yeah. Just kind of crazy to think about. Anyway, I'm very interested to hear this story, so let's get to it.
So it is 1783, and the Treaty of Paris has just been signed between the US and Britain, which means, yay, the colonies are independent. Though
Right.
that did not mean that both sides were still not very buddy-buddy with each other.
No.
And were also still doing stuff to piss each other off.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So this is right after the American Revolution, and we've just signed the treaty, become independent, and understandably the US and the UK kinda still don't really like each other much.
So when France decided screw monarchy and went to conquer most of Europe, Britain and friends went to war with them. And Britain, doing what it does best, sent its big chungus navy to blockade France.
I like this art style, by the way.
Yeah.
I not even acknowledging the pixelated art here and the funny giant rabbit. Okay.
Pixel art is some of my most favorite art, which is why I'm a fan of Minecraft, and I like the pixel fire flower I've got up there. Actually, all the art on my walls is pixelated, and that's why I requested that the cat be pixelated, as well as the overlay that I had designed by Amelia Designer, who found me on Twitch, who was very insistent that I give her a tip, was very slow with her work, and I had to explain what I wanted the cat to look like several times and still didn't quite get what I wanted.
He got me with that one.
And Britain, doing what it does best, sent its big chungus navy to blockade France. Only problem was they did not have enough sailors. And this was not helped by the fact that many British sailors hopped on over to American ships, as they did not want to serve in the Navy. So Britain did the only logical thing, and started boarding the ships of a neutral nation, and yoinked British deserters. Even the ones that had become American citizens.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this wasn't an exact science, as the British probably took quite a few American sailors, who had never even set foot in Britain.
How awkward would that be? Just to randomly have your ship taken over by Britain and be sailed off to Britain, and you're just an American standing there on the ship like everyone else is just, and you're just, I guess I'm gonna go along with this. I'm English now.
Another thing the Brits did to piss off the Americans was their support of the many Indian tribes fighting the US, and then passing the Ordnance Council, which required American ships to dock in Britain and pay tax before trading with other European powers.
Yeah.
But eventually, the British Prime Minister Robert Jenkinson decided to smooth things out and rescinded the Ordnance Council. But unfortunately, it was not like he could just text the Americans what's up, and it took about 3 weeks for the message to cross the Atlantic.
Right. Gosh, that's a whole thing that you never think about, period. Stuff like that. Communicating that you want peace took 3 weeks. Man, the fact that the travel of information was so slow, done by boat in this case, probably had a pretty significant effect on the course of the entire planet's history. Now that I think about it. Okay, this video has got me going off in my brain in outer space.
Oh, it's like Tyler never learned about, after the Second World War, how there were Japanese forces on a bunch of Pacific islands that were still fighting the war for years after because they just never got the word that Japan surrendered or never believed the propaganda that Japan had lost the war, and they just kept fighting because information was not widely shared back then. We are in a new age here, and we're moving past the information age at a rapid pace. Welcome to the future, everybody. Let's keep going.
Okay.
Well, in that time, the Americans decided that they had had enough and declared war. But this wasn't just because America was salty with Britain, but also because they really wanted Canada. And who could blame the US for this? Canada has free healthcare, poutine, and Michael Cera.
All jokes, because of course at the time none of those were a thing.
Okay, but yes, this is kind of what I learned about in the War of 1812. America just getting greedy, just getting evil, and just wanting to start attacking Canada. It's like, we want Canada now.
Well, America was born out of the whole imperial colonization, and after the First and Second World Wars, they really expanded in imperial colonization. Heck, before that, it was America was developing its own empire. Think of like the sugar production, the banana republics. Moving on.
Yeah, luckily that did not work out.
Now, the US was a bit optimistic about the whole thing. And while yes, they had more troops than Britain and North America, they were of a lower quality, and they only had 17 ships to Britain's over 1,000.
Yeah.
They also believed that the Anglo-Canadians would just see the light and side with the Americans.
Oh, was that a thing? Was that actually a part of it? That America thought it'd just be a bunch of pushovers? They'd meet no resistance? Come, be American! Join America! Come one, come all! I could have been one of the frontline men pitching such a sweet deal there.
Well, there's a historical precedent, right? Like when Hitler's forces invaded Poland, they just thought that they'd be happy and welcomed. It's like when Russian forces invaded Ukraine and Crimea, they thought that they'd just be happy to rejoin the motherland. It's a thing.
Everybody. And then just get like an arrow to the head or something. Okay.
So the US rushed in to attack the British in Upper Canada from Detroit with a numerically superior army, and promptly lost and had to give up Detroit. They were also not helped by the fact that the Anglo-Canadians stayed loyal, and so did the Quebecers, as they kind of liked their deal with Britain, where they could be Catholic and French.
That's what I understand. From what I understand, a lot of the Canadians just preferred, perhaps is a better way of putting it, preferred keeping their relations with the British Empire because it gave them more protection, more resources, and you got America attacking you at this point from the south, so also For those reasons.
something they feared that the Americans would take away.
I think also, being up further north, we have a preference for things to stay quiet and the way they are, because when the seasons change, with that change can come a lot of chaos and ruin, and we like things to be rather constant, predictable, simple life.
Meanwhile, in northern Michigan, the British attacked the American garrison there, who had no idea there was even a war going on, because again, no texting in 1812. Also, a bunch of native tribes ended up siding with the British, as they were not too fond of the whole manifest destiny thing, and Britain gave them some vague promises about their own Indian state. So the Americans tried and...
I didn't know that. Interesting. I didn't know about the whole Native Americans, original American inhabitants kind of siding with Britain during a lot of these conflicts, but it makes complete sense. It's sort of that whole the enemy of my enemy is my friend thing going on there.
Invading again.
Yeah, and false promises have a lot to do with motivating people.
Amassing a force and upsets about their own Indian state. So the Americans tried invading again, amassing a force in upstate New York, but then immediately got clapped by the British after crossing the Niagara River. In 1813, the Americans tried again to take back Detroit, but one of the American commanders screwed up and marched his force ahead of the main force, and got destroyed by the British, which kind of bungled the whole thing.
I didn't know that, unless that event has a name that I might know better.
So this would explain why people in Detroit are more aware of Canadian history and the War of 1812 than most of the rest of the states.
But that's quite a screw-up, huh? Although I would imagine, again, given how communication went, that kind of mistake happening probably being pretty common, honestly.
Marched his force ahead of the main force, and got destroyed by the British, which kind of bungled the whole thing. But the Americans finally did something that did not immediately flop on its face, when they crossed Lake Ontario to take Toronto, and then saw some success taking several forts along the Niagara River.
Oh! I didn't even know that there was any level of success in the Americans' attempt at taking over parts of Canada.
Down south, though, conflict flared up between the US and Creek natives, which Britain, along with Spain, who wasn't even fighting in the war, supported the Creeks. The US did its thing, of course, and defeated them and forced them to cede even more land away. Around this time, the US got a boat to Lake Erie, and there was a freaking naval battle in there, which the US won. So at least the Americans had one out of the 5 Great Lakes in their control. In November, the US's steam ran out when they tried to take Montreal, and failed in that task. With winter setting in, the British used this to their advantage, and pushed back the Americans past the Niagara.
Oh, hold on.
Winter setting.
This is important.
The US's steam ran out when they tried to take Montreal, and failed in that task. With winter setting in, the British used this to their advantage, and pushed back the Americans past the Niagara.
So winter was as winter and cold seems to have effect on a lot of historical long-term conflicts. Winter, just the elements, was a huge factor. It's so interesting how true that is. It's something you'd never think of today, because we all live, if you're living in a first world country, you're living in such comfort with clothes, your poofy jacket whenever you need it, that you wouldn't even really appreciate how something like, oh, winter's here, so this entire side of the conflict died. That's how things happened.
I mean, like, let's look back to the invasion of Russia by Germany's forces in the World Wars. Yup.
Time Napoleon got defeated, again, which allowed the British to reinforce Canada. The British also started raiding the South, and freed many slaves, many of whom went on to fight for the British. So maybe the British were the good guys in this war. Even with both sides beginning to run out of money for their war efforts, and starting peace negotiations, the British under General Cockburn sailed into Chesapeake Bay and landed near D.C.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, there it is!
Oh, he focused on the name.
When does the White House catch on fire?
Oh, well, he was focused on the name Coburn, as we might pronounce it here.
I'm a simple man. I'm just a simple American man. I just want to know, what's up with the White House being on fire? And lo and behold, the very next frame.
Here it is.
Look at this thing. Okay.
The British under General Cockburn sailed into Chesapeake Bay and landed near D.C. When the British entered D.C., they began to burn down many public buildings, including
Okay.
the White House. It
Okay.
is even said that a Canadian militia did this, but I really could not find a reliable source on that, so let's just pretend so I can use that as clickbait in the title.
Ah, okay.
And even if it was not a Canadian division of British soldiers, it was the British fighting on behalf of Canada for Canada, doing an action that should be Canada versus the United States. So, yeah, Canadians burned the White House.
Okay, so now we get into the details. I mean, we're talking about a war being fought against America where it's basically Great Britain and Canada working together. So I think we can definitely include Canada in on this
Right?
White House burning
Yeah.
activity. And according to the urban legend, it was a Canadian militia, so just some dude who lit the first little match
And we'll do it again if we have to.
and ran away. And oh, it wasn't me. I didn't light the White House on fire. Or actually, he'd probably want to take credit because it's kind of a real feather in your cap.
Yeah, the United States has this whole plan to take over any nation if they need to. It's kind of like Batman in a way, right? And a part of that plan is the Canadian repercussion, which is we're going to burn down the White House. Like, yes, the Canadian plan of defense has a lot to do with sniper action, a lot to do with covert, hidden sniping action, because, well, we all pretty good at hunting. The best snipers in the world are Canadian. But moreover, we gonna burn it down.
To be that guy, I suppose. Anyway, very interesting. The details here.
I really could not find a reliable source on that, so let's just pretend so I can use that as clickbait in the title.
Yeah.
General
me too.
Cockburn also ordered his soldiers
too.
to destroy any C's they found, so the Americans could not abuse his name. Wonder why they did that. But then a big storm hit and the Brits had to go back on their ships. They tried to take Baltimore next.
There we go again. A storm. A freaking weather storm had a huge impact on this invasion. Just, I could go on about the weather. I could go on.
But failed.
Oh, we're gonna go on about the weather for the next 20, 30 years. Like, the storms ruining people's days, ruining wars, ruining nations, taking over other nations. That's just gonna amplify. So get ready and make sure all your insurances are in place for your house, depending on what region you're in and what could happen should the weather go crazy.
And Francis Scott Key made a pretty cool song about it. I don't know if you've heard it before. Meanwhile, down south, Andrew Jackson, not the president yet, went and attacked the British and Spanish, who weren't even in the war, at Pensacola. Then moved to New Orleans to fortify for an upcoming British attack. Meanwhile, back in Ghent, where peace negotiations were going on, the Brits proposed control of the Great Lakes region for themselves, and an Indian barrier stayed there. Now, of course, neither side really had any leverage, so on December 24th, 1814, peace was finally signed.
Okay.
With literally no border changes. Unfortunately, again, no texting, British forces still attacked New Orleans. But the Americans under Andrew Jackson repelled it. And then everyone finally got word of the war ending. And hence the war...
Okay, they right. That's like a big deal. Everyone finally... Couldn't you just lie about that? I guess they'd have some kind of official document or orders to show for themselves.
You'd have to, otherwise the soldiers wouldn't believe your word for it.
But the way the world worked back then, if you were high enough ranked, you could almost just start running around on your horse, telling people, "Oh, the war is over, peace. I just got the message." I don't know. It probably wouldn't work how I think it would.
Well, yeah, because the higher-ranked soldiers who could actually get away with that are busy doing other high-ranking soldier things.
Would work, but that's what I'd be doing 200 years ago. Some real meta brain battles I'd be waging.
of 1812 ended in 1815. Great job on naming
Oh.
that, historians. So who really won? I don't know. But the natives sure didn't.
No.
Yeah. Okay. That was very nice video. Very good. Very funny, too. Logan Productions. I give you a like.
Right
Thank
on.
you for that. That was good. Funny enough, most of this video was just kind of a history lesson.
Well, I think that's what most of the Tyler Bucket videos really are, just him learning about Canadian history and culture.
Elaborating a little deeper on the War of 1812, a little deeper on some of the nuances of America versus Great Britain, and who was allied with who.
And the context is important for why the White House was set on fire. Otherwise, it's just like, why did you do this, Canada? Well, yeah, it's because you did your stuff, right?
And then we got that nugget of, which he said was clickbait, which was kind of true, but I'm okay with it, about torching the White House, burning the White House during an invasion of Washington, D.C., and Canadians, I'm sure, well, I guess I'm not sure, but Canada was part of this whole conflict.
Very
so
proud.
I am willing to grant them some of that credit. I don't know if they want the credit.
Yes,
I'm
we do.
not Canadian, but I'm
We
going
like
to
it.
grant them the credit if they want it.
Thank you.
Along with the UK. There you go. You burned the White House. There you go.
And we'll do it again.
That's all I'll say about that. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this reaction, feel free to give it a like.
Like this
or
one?
a
Like that
comment,
one?
And
Comment
if
what
you're
you think.
Interested, if I can talk correctly,
Share if you
you're
want.
interested in more content like this.
Or this.
More videos about Canada,
cat.
its history,
My beard.
culture, news, things I don't know about Canada.
Like my haircut.
Feel free to subscribe
Right
for
there.
more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.
And thank you, absolutely thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope that you like more videos that you see, and after the end card rolls, you will see some videos here and playlists, and hey, thank you very much. I hope y'all just keep being awesome. Bye. Science. Spirit. Life. Nerd Pumpkin.